It's because I've done something to get that. And the beauty of that is when I can get that through my thick head, I'll stop living in resentment, uh, anxiety, um, and just the world of blame. And so it does relinquish that. It does make me take personal responsibility. And these things that you're mentioning, although you sort of mentioned, and that's why I stopped you, because you're mentioning like, oh yeah, I tell you when you moved. These are things that are like, they're almost like shocking. Like, how would you ever know that? You don't even know me.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily spiritual podcast with your host, Raghunath. Kastuba's on break today in Rishikesh. Welcome to the show. This is episode 1549, and it is Sleep In Sunday. Next, Interview Sunday. We tried to sleep in. Didn't work because it's daylight savings time today in America. So we're at 8 o'clock. I thought it was 7 o'clock. I was in the midst of this beautiful puja worship meditation, and then Mara's like, "You got 7 minutes left." I was like, "What?" So I'm here in a fluster. We have a great interview today with a good friend of mine and very powerful astrologer, Radhikesh Prabhu. He's been on the show before. Before we reintroduce Radhikesh, I'm going to ask Miss Mara if she has any announcements.
Yeah, we're excited to launch our first Wisdom of the Sages youth group.
Woo!
Akadasi Vratadasi is one of our current sage group leaders and a disciple of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami, and will be leading two youth groups. She also teaches at the local school in Alachua. There's one for ages 9 to 12 and one for ages 13 to 15.
How do kids sign up for this?
On Saturday, whatever next Saturday's date is, on the Sage community platform, go to wisdomofthesages.com. And you can also email sagegroups108@gmail.com.
All right. So it's going to be an online group.
Yeah, that's right. And then also, Kastuba was wondering if we wanted to keep our show time at 6 a.m. Eastern time.
6 a.m. time with that.
Okay, great. Let's do it.
Which would be the Bhagirati and the Alakananda join in this beautiful formation. There's a story about Radhanath Swami taking bath there and getting swept away, and he gets grabbed by a sadhu. So we're going to Devaprayag for a couple nights. We're going to Rishikesh because Rishikesh is wonderful. I have a big kirtan program going on, and we're going to go to bathe in the Ganga there and explore Rishikesh and holy places in Rishikesh. Then we take a day trip to Haridwar. Then we fly to Jaipur. Me and Mara were just in Jaipur, just going over everything we wanted to really explore, including all the original deities of India, of Vrindavan rather, that were brought to Jaipur. Such a special place, such a magical place, especially for those in this tradition. And then we're going to go to Govardhan and Vrindavan. So it's going to be a great trip. You can email me or my assistant Tara at Raghu, RAGHU.pilgrimage@gmail.com. Raghu, RAGHU.pilgrimage@gmail.com to hold your spot. Word got out, so people are already signing up for it, but it's going to be great this year. Really looking forward to it. And that is October 29th to November 11th. So, bringing on our guest, Radhikesh Prabhu. Welcome back to the show. It's good to have you back, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo,
So grateful to be with all of you today. It's wonderful always to be on your show. Let me just start by saying I am so grateful to you, to Kastuba, to Mara, to the whole team for everything you're doing to spread this wonderful knowledge of spirituality throughout the world and make it so accessible to all of us that we can just be sitting at home and be able to take in this just profound knowledge. It's a very unique and wonderful thing you're doing. And I'm greatly, greatly thankful to all of you for doing that. Hare
My
Krishna.
my pleasure, and I want to thank you too, because you make this Jyotish or this Vedic astrology very easily understandable. What could either get written off as sort of new age hokey pokey, it could easily get your. Sometimes when you talk to people who are scientifically minded, they sort of, oh, this is. I thought this was a serious spiritual practice, but when uh, uh, you present it, you show that it's the weight behind it and what it actually delivers and how it's more less than a woman with a bandana on her head looking in a crystal ball, and it's more almost like
Yeah,
engineering, like or mathematics, and it's impressive how accurate it is. And so we're just going to pick your brain today a little bit. Going to talk about an upcoming workshop you're going to do free of charge for our Sage Group members, Sage Community Platform members. And I'm just going to pick your brain today, if that's okay.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So let me just start off by giving a little introduction about you. You've been practicing for a while now. You're from a family lineage of astrologers. It seems like that's a common thing. In the same way, in the old days, we used to have like my father was a carpenter and his father was a carpenter, and they're like these family trades that came down in various communities. Is that correct?
That's right. It's very common in the ancient times for, in any trade for people to continue what the family had been doing for a long time. My family's been doing astrology for more generations than we can remember. So, continuing that tradition came very naturally and very easily to do that. And this is mostly the way this knowledge was passed down, was generation by generation.
And interestingly enough, I was thinking about this, like people are born with proclivities perhaps towards math or music or art. So if you're born in a family of that, there's every chance that you could have taken birth from that same family lineage. You could have been the great 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 grandfather who already has been practicing, and then all of a sudden these things are coming very natural. So it's not like it's just because your father did it and he gave you some pointers or some insider tips, but I feel like when I meet people like yourself or Ayurvedic physicians, it's as if they've been practicing from previous lives as well, and I think that's adds to your sort of so-called intuition. I say so-called because it's not just like it's a gut feeling; it's a practiced feeling, and that's what I think makes you very accurate in your readings.
Yes, bro. I think it's definitely when you have a family lineage, there's the karmic aspect of it is certainly there because you may be reborn into that same family where you can continue the same things you've been doing, but at a deeper level, at a more experienced level. And it allows you to take astrology is a science, but it's a very subtle science. It's not like, you know, chemistry or physics where there's just these hard rules and you follow them and they go like this.
Mm.
Astrology has all those same rules, but the rules can be twisted and turned and bent around. And that's where the astrologer has to take all these different subtleties into account. And then our ability to interpret all of those together comes from experience that may be there for many lifetimes for
Mm.
some astrologers and allows them to really go deep into that and give people the proper guidance.
Yeah, for sure. I know in different forks in my life, I've had you give me some good advice, and I've always sort of grateful for it in having you close to me. Now you're with your beautiful family in Alachua, living right practically next door to one of our regular listeners, Henry, which is really
That's
nice.
right.
And I'm looking
That's
forward to
right.
coming down in a couple of weeks and seeing you because I'm going to come down and visit my son. But
That will be wonderful.
yeah. But if I may explain, to those who are sort of green to this, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. The day and time I was born, like I was born January 11th, 1966 at 9:08 a.m. But I was also born in Carmel, New York. So at that moment in Carmel, New York, the longitude and the latitude of exactly where I was at that moment, where I came out of the womb, there was a star rising. And from that star, so much can be understood. You sort of have to reverse, what's it called? Engineer, reverse engineer it to line up all the planets. Is that correct?
Yes. So, the moment that you're born, and this is for every single person out there, the time, the date, and the place that you're born. Uh, if you look at the stars in the sky at that exact moment, okay, you are getting a map of your life. Krishna is very kind. He's given us so many ways to understand our life, so many ways to understand our karma, so many ways to understand how the modes of nature are affecting us. And astrology gives you a map of, okay, this is the karmic influences I'm born under. This is why I'm predisposed to this or predisposed to that or this other type of thing. And then what we can, ascertain from that to how our life is going to go forward and what we can do about it. The one thing about astrology that's so important to know is that it is not written in stone. In fact, you are fully empowered to make changes where there are some things going on or certain inclinations or certain predispositions that may be negative or enhance certain predispositions that may be positive. So it gives you a very wonderful map of your life, your nature, whether it's for yourself, for your children, in a relationship. There's so many aspects to it. But yes, those three things can give you a lot of guidance. And if a lot of people don't know their time or their time's not accurate, and time can be calculated if people don't know. So I have to do that for a lot of people. So if there's somebody out there like, well, I know the date I was born and I know where I was born, but I have no idea what time it was. And that can be calculated if
Again,
somebody
you could
needs to know.
you you can reverse engineer it like, okay, your mom
Right.
died at this time, you graduated at this time. We can sort of figure out some specifics. What about if a person is, for a skeptical mind about twins? Shouldn't twins have the exact same astrological chart? Or does that, like, one twin came out at 9:08 a.m. and one came out at 9:12 a, you know what I mean? Is it like the 4 minutes or the 15 minutes makes such a big difference in their lives?
It does. It does
Uh-huh.
because the birth chart may look exactly the same, but what we do is I look at 16 different charts. There's divisional charts that you look at, which
Wow.
are much more subtle than even the birth chart. So twins, or two people born one room apart in the hospital may have the exact same birth chart, but their divisional charts will look very different. And so when the divisional charts are different, that really helps you get into the subtleties of what is going on in that person's life. So actually, two people will not have the same divisional charts. Their birth charts may be similar.
Hmm. Do you have you said this earlier about, we were talking about people being born into a family of whatever, astrologers, carpenters, photographers, musicians. It, do you find that souls travel in clusters? Like they'll switch, like if me and Mara are very serious, we hang out for 20 years, next lifetime it's as if she was my daughter, I was her mother, something like that. Do you find reincarnation goes like that, or is it sort of random? I met Mara randomly, never see her again. How does it work with families, with children, with parents, with grandparents? Is it like traveling in clusters? Does astrology give some insight into that?
So it's a little bit of both.
Huh.
Yes, there can be random things, but yes, families can travel in clusters also where people, because if the people you're with, you have karmic connections with them. And
For
we have
sure.
to continue those karmic connections or deal with the positive and negative aspects of those karmic connections. Say somebody did something for you in a past life that you will have an obligation to repay that, whether it's in this life or the next life, or you offended somebody in a life. Well, that karma is going to come back in some way. So
Wow.
yes, those connections will always be there. Now, how long they last, somebody you may have, done something good for in your past life, and they will come into your life for some time, do something beneficial for you, and then they're gone. Now, when it's a family, the karmas are usually much deeper because there's much more interaction with families. So those connections, lifetime through lifetime, can stay quite strong, or allow us all to grow together on that spiritual journey.
Wow. Skipping the metaphysical and getting right to the practical, we always say, stop blaming. You can't blame your way to a better tomorrow. We live in a world where we're on a regular basis, we're saying, why me? Or it's not fair. Astrology is one of these things where it shows how, no, it is fair. It actually is very, very fair. What's
Right.
happening right now. And I know you might be going through some hell and you may not want to hear this, but there's some fairness in the way people ill-treated you, hurt you, betrayed you. And if you see the soul's bigger picture, you'll find there's some definite payback I'm getting right now. And I want to blame it on the situation. I want to blame it on the government. I want to blame it on my family. I want to blame it on my dad. I want to blame it on some trauma I had. But can you speak of this? Perhaps you've seen it in other people's charts. Things have come up that resonate with what they're going through now. What do you see?
Yeah, this is the most common thing that we do in astrology, is try to help people to understand, their own karma, and that this is your chart is like a map. It's a map of the karmas you're dealing with in this life. And so, if I can look at your chart now, I can tell you that, okay, you're going through the last 3 years, you've been going through this struggle, or when you
Mm.
were 6 years old, you had this surgery done, or, I can tell you the 5 times in your life when you moved. What this does, it helps people understand that, my God, I am not the controller. I don't decide when all of these things happen,
I just want to
and
interrupt for
so,
a second. The
yeah.
things he just mentioned, Radhikesh just mentioned, these are like faith builders in this entire science. It's one thing if he would say, "Oh, Raghunath, you're 59. When you're 65, you're going to be getting into a lot of money, or you're going to experience some heartbreak." It's another thing if you can share, "Oh, wow, you've been a musician your entire life." I just had my chart read in Jaipur by a great astrologer. He's like, "Yeah, music your entire life. You're a messenger. You speak a spiritual message wherever you go." The guy didn't know me from Adam, but it's like a map. It's almost more like an autobiography. Like especially because I'm older now, so I'm reading things in my life that he's reading as if he knew my life. Right? What was the guy saying? Matter of fact, a lot of the stuff he said to me wasn't even as mind blowing as when he handed me the chart and had all his personal writings in it, right?
Yeah, it was as if he knew you, had known you for decades.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
decades. So these are the things that it's not hokey, it's not woo woo. It's actually like a hard, subtle science. And there's some glimpse into what you just say is called these karmas that we're dealing with. There's a reason why there's a knot in my shoe. There's a reason why there's a tear in my shirt. There's a reason why there's a hole in my pants. There's a reason, it's because I've done something to get that. And the beauty of that is when I can get that through my thick head, I'll stop living in resentment, resentment, uh, anxiety, um, and just the world of blame. And so it does relinquish that. It does make me take personal responsibility. And these things that you're mentioning, although you sort of mentioned, and that's why I stopped you, because you're mentioning like, oh yeah, I tell you when you moved. These are things that are like, they're almost like shocking. Like, how would you ever know that? You don't even know me. So again and again, you've done that for
Right.
me. And this guy did it in Jaipur for me. So anyway, please continue on. I'm sorry, I pushed your train off
Oh,
the
no, no,
rails there.
no, 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 no problem at all. Problem. Um, so yes, what astrology in essence does for a lot of people, it's their first proof, if you want to use that word, of Krishna's presence in their life.
Mm.
That, this random person, as you mentioned, this wonderful astrologer in Jaipur, that can tell you, oh, this happened when you were 6 years old. These kind,
Sure.
when somebody does this, it's people's first like steps in many ways towards, hey, maybe there's something deeper, maybe there's something bigger I need to look into. I'm not seeing the full picture of this world or the universe, and this is my first step or deeper understanding into doing that. So this is a wonderful way astrology can help in guiding people. Astrology is fundamentally in the service of Krishna. It's one of the limbs of bhakti. If you
Mm,
look back at like the time of Lord Chaitanya, or in the first canto, 12th chapter, the whole story of the birth of Maharaj Parikshit, it's all about his birth chart and his astrology and getting all of this done and how his life is going to be. So this is there for, you know, from the beginning of
mm,
time, where we're looking at how people's life can be affected. And it's just as wonderful to do it in the modern day, because you can see how different things are present in your life. And then it's your choice, right? We have our
mm.
astrological predispositions, but then
Sure.
we can make a choice. Okay, if my life is pushing me in this direction, I have this heavy Rahu energy that's, you know, I could get addicted to alcohol, or I could have this problem. How can I fight against that? What can I do to make sure I don't develop this problem?
So you can
Versus,
see problems with addiction, say, in a person's chart. You can see this
you
person.
can.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, especially very commonly, you see this heavy energy of Rahu in
Mm,
people's chart who are predisposed to addiction, which, when I do a reading for somebody like that, it's always like, look, you need to be much more careful, uh, of being around the wrong kind of people or being around the wrong kind of places than somebody who doesn't have that strong of an energy in their chart. Uh, the analogy I like to use is, if you have two people who are walking past a bar,
mm.
and one person has a strong Jupiter influence in their chart, not strong Venus energy, they could walk into that bar, they could sit down, they could watch the game, eat some pretzels, walk out of there and never be bothered. But then somebody who
Sure.
has a strong Rahu energy, they look at the bar or they smell the alcohol that may be there, they're going to be like, oh my God, I want that. And they're the one who should
Right.
run past that bar as quickly as they can, because they're going to be inclined to addictions. So this is, once you understand that, those kind of things and how they're present in your chart, you can protect yourself in many ways.
For sure. For sure. It's insight. It's insight into what's coming down the road and what sometimes we're a little obtuse to as well. I also read in my own chart that I have some attraction to darker things. Not that I'm this being of light. But although that is there in my chart too, I have this thing that's work and dharma are like tied together. I can't work
Right.
outside of dharma, which even explains my Hare Krishna life when I was in a band in the midst of craziness and insanity and drugs, but I was preaching of straight edge and clean living. Um, I did just get a message I wanted to share with you from one of our listeners, and I wanted to get some feedback from you. She said, I hope you're well. I'm wondering if having an astrological reading on someone who has left their body would help those who are still living to get more closure. Another thing they wrote was, also, my father passed almost 2 years ago, but we shared a birthday. Would a reading be able to give me any insight into why we share a birthday? I feel it is significant and have some intuition about why, but wonder if a reading would give me more clarity on this topic. That's from Krista from Skodak. She's not that far from us. So anyway, the first one is, what do you think about doing readings of people who have deceased?
Actually, I do quite a few readings of people who are deceased. People will call for several reasons. Number one, how did this person actually die? Was it suicide? Was it murder?
Oh,
Was it
oh,
natural?
wow.
This is very interesting. That's one topic we get into. Somebody will die suddenly, and there's some money in the family. Like, it's like a soap
Right.
opera
There's a
sometimes.
mystery behind it.
It's a mystery, and then they'll ask me, okay, was this, the police aren't helping us, this isn't going on, was this a, did my father actually kill himself, or did
Foul
somebody take
play.
his life? Yeah.
Wow, I never
But
thought about that. How useful.
It's very useful for that. But to your to what she's asking, yes, it can be helpful in a couple of ways. Number one, to understand where that person is going next. What was their consciousness at the
Mm,
end of their life? What was their focus at the end of their life? What were their fears? And certainly it can help you look at family connections and those kind of things, and if your karma is related. The
right.
birthday by itself may or may not be related, but there's certainly possibilities. And that the only way to tell that is to kind of look at the charts and compare them and see what's going on.
Wow.
But yes,
A
there's a lot
very,
of mysterious things you can find when you look at astrological charts. I mean,
yeah.
in what we do, we deal with, people with possessions, ghostly issues, all of this, and you
Okay,
can
hold
really
that because I
help get through that.
hold that thought. Hold possession for a while because I just got a recent message from somebody and I didn't know where to go with this. But I wanted to say why I appreciate you also is because it's not just looking at data, what you do, and I like about you, Prabhu, is you know how to deliver that data. For example, if it says something like in June, you will lose all your money, or you'll go through a bankruptcy or some financial hardship, instead of reading that to me, say, you would say something like, okay, this is a good time, a very good time to go inside and internal. It's the delivery that assists the people because I brought people to astrologers in India and the guy just could not deliver it well. Matter of fact, Mara went to an astrologer once, and the guy's thing was so sharp and heavy. I think it I think it's screwed with you, Mara. I think it's screwed with your head. And that's not what we want to take away from an astrologer. We want to know how to empower us, how to make better choices, how to move forward in life. Mara, you want to share anything about that little?
Well, it was maybe like 2 minutes into this call with an astrologer, and he just gave me this like, and I've never been somebody who's super interested in my past lives, just because I feel like I have enough to work through in this lifetime in this body without worrying about what I've done in past lives. And like 2 minutes into this call, he went into this heavy burden that I was carrying from past life, um, past life, like things that I had done, but also like in that also said, like, you really had no choice, but you did what you thought was best for your family, and you're carrying this like very heavy burden of, you know, yeah, it was
It was
really
a very
heavy.
heavy thing that she had to carry with us. So anyway, the delivery is also important. In the same way, a parent won't tell the kid everything that is happening for the protection of the kid's maybe mental health.
And when I asked him what I should do about this, he was like,
There's nothing you can do.
no, he said, cow saver. I was like, okay.
Right. Which that was sort of like the
Sort of
answer
everything.
to everything, cow save, which in one sense it is a good way to serve. But anyway, that's an appreciation for you and how you deliver it so we can move forward.
It's really important because when you look at, nothing in this life, any obstacles we have, any difficulties we have, any karmas we have,
Mm,
they're not there in a vacuum. We have to see everything in our relationship to Krishna because we're all devotees and Krishna is full of love for each and every one of us. So when we understand everything that is our karma, this, yes, the storms of life do come. We do go through difficulties. But when we see those storms and we see them karmically, we see Krishna's presence there, then we're fully empowered to take that obstacle and turn it into a great opportunity to transform our life. Or
sure.
if, yes, there's a heavy storm coming, well, maybe time to take, shelter for a little while until this passes. So this is where we become empowered. And this is the astrologer's role, certainly, to help us see everything in relationship to Krishna, everything in relationship to our karma, and allow us to leave any situation stronger and better, not feeling disheartened or discouraged or weakened.
Super interesting. Now, jewels, getting into more stuff that people could easily write off. You want to share a little bit how does a jewel affect your karma? Because I know there's certain things. If I'm dealing with some heavy karma, there's certain things that you can counteract different karmas with. One are pujas or religious rituals. Another's are mantras, and one thing is jewels. there may be a few others that I might have missed out on, but do you want to share anything about that?
Yeah, bro, that's very nice topic. So there's 5 general types of remedies we use in astrology. The most powerful one is gems. We can then do yagyas, which are the fire sacrifices. You can do mantras. You can give in charity, and you can wear certain colors. You know, these are 5 different types of what we call upayas, or remedies or cures for the things, the karmas we're dealing with. So gems are very powerful in reducing the karmic effects that we have. The key with gemstones is that they have to be pure. So pure means they can't be, heated, irradiated, lab made, any of this kind of stuff.
This is a
Pure,
common thing now. You heat jewels to make them look better.
right. They look prettier, yes.
Yep,
Just
sure.
like, you have organic, natural food, and then you have the stuff with all the chemicals in it. They may look similar, but the effects are very different of those two things, eating pure organic food versus a lot of the chemicals that are out there. So this
Sure.
is the same type of thing. When you have a pure gemstone, and it's a different gemstone for every different planet. You have blue sapphires you use for Saturn, yellow sapphires for Jupiter. You have diamonds you use for Venus, and every planet has its stone. When you wear those stones, what happens is that the energy, what you're doing, say you wear a gemstone for Saturn because you have a Saturn problem. What you're doing, in essence, is number one, recognizing I am not the controller. And number two, you're recognizing, well, somebody else is the controller. Krishna is the controller. And then this is like a medicine you're taking to reduce the effect that this planet is bringing in your life. It's like if your blood pressure is very high, you have to take some medicine to bring it down. If your karma is quite, strong, you can do some things to reduce or balance that karma out of it. It's a very wonderful way to reduce the karmas we're dealing with. And
Favor of those karmas. I'm going to jump in for 1 second, if you don't
yeah,
mind, but
sure.
this triggered something in me. Generally, I say, well, this is Krishna's plan. Why are you trying to fight it with some mantra to Ganesh? Why are you trying to fight it with some puja, or some, wearing, you were mentioning this other interesting thing, wearing a different color on a different day of the week, like wearing yellow on Thursday, something like that. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So I just said, just accept this is Krishna's way of purifying you. And that is true. And we lean into that the most. But Prabhu, I've met people. I've met people who are just, it's as if some karma is haunting them and they can't get around it. And in one sense, it's collapsing their spiritual life because they can't.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not happening to me in this lifetime or due to my karmas, but I've seen it happen that it's so overwhelming them. Perhaps that's the time to resort to one of these other exit strategies. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, the way, bro, I like to give an analogy is that if you fall down and break your arm, okay, it's not that you're going to chant Hare Krishna and it's going to get better. You have to do something about it. So if you're same way with the karmas we deal with. So if you're someone who's above your karma and conditioning and things, you're like, I don't care what happens in this world, if I live or I die or I lose all my money, and I'm never going to care about it because I'm just fully connected to Krishna 100%, then you don't need to do anything. Okay, then you're fine. You're just chanting in the Himalayas and everything is good. You don't need to do anything. But that's not 99% of us. We need, an end to some of the things we're dealing with. We need a peaceful life to be able to easily and comfortably practice our Krishna consciousness. And sometimes the things we're dealing with can become so heavy that we can't even get out of bed. We can't even, get out of our mind. We can't even pick up our beads to chant because it's things we deal with are so heavy. And
Sure.
sometimes these things, it'll just take the edge off. It'll make things easier for you. It'll, the winds of karma will push you in the right direction. And this can just allow us to become more, it actually allows us to become more connected to Krishna because we understand, wow, there's a universal energy that's guiding my life. And these are things I can do to help me. Say, let's use the example of, your blood pressure being super high. If you're super high, you're having severe headaches and all of this problems from that. Well, you may not be able to do your normal activities properly, or they become much more difficult. All of a sudden, you bring that blood pressure down and things are better. So if Saturn or Rahu or Jupiter, whatever planet is affecting you, and they're affecting you kind of in a heavy negative way, now you have a way to kind of, okay, let me reduce some of this karma so I can live my life normally. I'm not dealing with all these same problems, and I can focus clearly on my spiritual life.
Sure. Sure. Very, very, very interesting. And I love the way how you really bring it back to, because there's a lot of people that aren't Vaishnavas, but they're astrologers and they're good astrologers.
Right.
But they'll immediately go right to these other alternatives for like an exit strategy. I like how you bring it back to ultimately pure devotional service, and we're trusting that Krishna has a plan, but these things can be useful. That's the only reason why I'm asking. People come and they just say, I just can't get on with my spiritual life because of this, dark cloud that I'm dealing with. And it's like a
Right.
storm. I'm interested. A person came to me with, she said a friend is suffering what apparently is a possession. Now, if you're new to the show, welcome to the wonderful world of metaphysics and how subtle entities, when I say subtle, it means don't have a gross body, but they're subtle bodies. And the subtle entities could be like malefic or just sort of in some type of holding pattern until they take a new body. But it's as if they were either cursed. She said, I have a friend that's either been cursed or possessed. What do you do about that? Do you ever see that can you see that in astrology? Like if you were to look at my chart, like, oh, damn, Raghunath, he's possessed, or he has a subtle body in him, or, and I think cursing and possession are probably two different things. By the way, I'm asking you this stuff, I think these are all important things because they're Vedic things. We talk about these things in Vedic circles. So I think they're important just to bring up, especially if you're going through some extreme situation in life. But can you see things like possession, or can you see things like cursing? I've been with other sort of mystics that are not necessarily astrologers, but they use astrology and they have some type of siddhi where they can say this person's possessed, and this is why they're possessed, and here's what you have to do. Can you see that through the science of astrology?
Yes, you can. So there's two different, yes, curses and possessions are two different things.
And
And
maybe
both
explain a
of them,
curse if you don't mind. Explain a curse.
yeah, a curse is just, what you would, there's rituals involved in doing curses. It's like dark magic, like the dark side of
Okay.
astrology or the dark side of the force, this, think of it in that way. Uh, there's ways that there's very particular rituals you can use to bring negativity on somebody. And this can
Sure.
be, you can bring them health problems, you can take away their money, you could, there's some, we don't get into all the different things that people can do. So those are specific rituals people can do to bring that into somebody else's life. Now, the important thing, I don't want anybody here to ever think they should do anything like that, because that karma will come back to you at some point. You'll get away with it temporarily, but 100% that comes back to you. But some people have been cursed in that way, and they're dealing with the consequences of that. And possessions certainly are a different thing when the aura of the body at certain times, whether it's inauspicious times or eclipses or certain planetary periods people are going through, some people are more, those doors are open to becoming possessed. The doors are open to somebody, taking over your body or certain aspects of your mind.
Is
And
it
so
like
that happens also.
is it like if a person is in a tamasic state of being, they're intoxicated, they're taking heavy medications, where it sort of opens up sort of a almost like a passageway or a portal into
Right.
your into your gross body. Um, uh, can a devotee worry? Should a devotee worry about that? A person practicing spiritual life worry about that? Perhaps my only speculation could be that if they lean into this tamasic habits, thoughts, etc. Should that be a worry of ours?
For devotees, I've not seen devotees getting this type of thing very uncommonly for devotees to this. So devotees do not need to worry about that. Anybody who gets into a tamasic lifestyle where there's whether there's addictions or just living in the mode of ignorance or just being, in an unthinking way about life, yes, there's a risk there for people, especially if somebody, you know, these entities, they see an opening, they'll try to take it. But devotees are in many ways protected from those kind of things. But it's out there. There's so many things out there that people are unaware of. So many living entities that are out there that all around us, whose presence people are unaware of.
I'm sorry. I was thinking it could manifest as sickness. It could manifest as mental illness. It could manifest as bad luck. Whatever it is. There's so many subtle things that can be happening to us. What I like in India traditionally, you go to an Ayurvedic doctor, and they have a good Ayurvedic doctor is an astrologer also, because
Right.
if you're trying to get me better from some disease of the stomach, but you don't understand the karma I'm going through right now, it doesn't matter how much Chavan Prash I take or how much healing modality or panchakarma I do. If it's in my karma right now to get some type of sickness, I'm not going to get better. You want to share about that a little bit? How sometimes we just have to deal with that.
Yeah. So yeah, my family, they were all Ayurvedic doctors and astrologers. That's all they've done
Gotcha.
for
Okay.
generations. And this is a very common tradition, as you said, Prabhu, in India. A lot of the Ayurvedic doctors, they were astrologers because these two limbs of bhakti, these are two different sciences. They go along together. So unless you understand the karma somebody's dealing with, a certain medicine may not be as effective for them. Chyawanprash may not work for somebody. They may need Guduchi or they may need something else. Where for another person, well, this medicine will work just as well for them. So yes, you have to really look at how everything, our physical health, our mental health, our karma, our astrological planetary influences, everything is interrelated and it manifests in many different ways in our life.
Hmm. If you don't mind me just spinning out of control here. Palmistry. How does I had this great in my book I tell a story about I was always interested in these what people considered occult sciences and how these they have some reality. And so I would always go to these palm readers who would say like I was going to be in a car accident. And then I met a very good, and I never believed it. I took it lightly, but then I met a very good astrologer. And I tell this story in my book, who, or not astrologer, but a palmist who just told me everything about my life and then told me again about this car accident and I couldn't avoid it. And I wrote about this and I asked him, well, what can I do to avoid it? He said, you can't avoid it, but you're not going to die. And so it turned out like 2 years later, I was on tour with my band in America. It was completely out of my control. It's not some people say, well, you manifested it yourself due to people telling you it was going to happen. No. It was our driver fell asleep at the wheel. The whole band went off of a cliff, practically speaking. And like the original palm reader said, you're going to get in a horrible accident. No one's going to die. So palm reading is also this type of oracle or this way to understand the future. Is palm reading tied in with Jyotish or Vedic astrology?
So these are all different sciences. They're all connected in that they're all different ways of trying to understand our relationship with divinity, understand our karma. There's so many different subtle sciences that can help us. So yes, but whether it's palmistry or astrology or other things people look at, there's a deeper way of understanding our life than just our modern day of living, which everybody who's listening to this show or on the podcast today, they all have an understanding of that. It's so there's many different ways of looking at the subtle energies of our life, and then doing things to take care of them.
Okay. When people are going through it, maybe sickness, health, we have our a good friend, regular listener, Tom Messick, is going through some health issues right now. Can you appeal to Lord Vishnu for healing, for health? What are the proper ways to do it? Is it just through prayer? Is it through ritual? Is it through pujas? Is it through mantras? Or should you just be like, Krishna, whatever you want? What do you think? What do you think the best way to go through that? And I'm asking for Tom, but I'm also asking for everybody out there who's going through something perhaps physical or mental right now.
It really depends. Every person is different, and they're going to approach this in a different way. For a lot of people, they're like, you know what, I'm just going to whatever, I'm just going to deal with it, let Krishna take care of it. That's how some people live it. If you're in that very, advanced state, then you leave it at that. And that's for some people. But for most of us, yes, it's very natural that we want to do something or fight this problem or get our health better so we can function and live and whatever our responsibilities are with our family and things like that. Being a doctor, it's also like I get a lot of people who are having health problems, who have those kind of challenges, and they want to see what they can do about it astrologically.
Right.
So there are a lot of things you can do, and depending on the severity of what you're dealing with, there's different things. Sometimes it's mantra, sometimes it's gems, sometimes it's doing a fire sacrifice. Sometimes it's more subtle, and a lot of times it's just an awareness of what the issue is will help resolve it. Sometimes if people like, okay, I have a strong energy of Rahu or a strong energy of Mercury that's pushing me toward anxiety or ADHD or OCD, different mental disorders or schizophrenia.
Sure.
Being aware of that just helps people recognize and kind of separate the energy of the mind from the intelligence and be able to deal with things. But most of the time, yes, we need to do something. And it really varies depending on the situation. If somebody's dealing with heavy, a cancer or bad heart problems, there's different things we'll do that I'll do compared to when somebody's dealing with like, diabetes or
Sure.
elevated blood
Okay.
pressure or arthritis. So yes,
I
it
get it.
varies completely, but there's a lot of things that can be done.
Okay, I get it. So you prescribe it almost like you're prescribing a medicine where it's going to be different
Right.
for one constitution and another constitution. You'd give a different dosage. So you'd give a different thing according to. So you see those people almost like. So this astrologer becomes almost like a therapist, almost like a life coach, almost like a doctor, and wears all those different hats in the healing,
Right.
and of course as a priest. In the healing process of whatever people are going through. Incredibly valuable, incredibly useful.
I have one actually important point I want to bring up for people, and this is a question I get all the time, is that
Sure.
how do I know which astrologer to see? How do I know? I see this guy on TV, I see this guy here, I see, somebody with 10 million followers on Instagram who, is talking about different things. How do you know? How do you, who's a person to see? The answer to that is that you find an astrologer the same way that you would find a doctor or a plumber or anything else. In the ancient days, it would be the astrologer would live in the village or in the city, and people would be like,
Right.
"Yes, go see him." In the modern day, the best thing to do is ask other people, read Google reviews, see what
Right.
people have said about them. See if their words connect with you. So this is, and how do they practice their own life and all of these things. So this is the ways we find a good astrologer and someone that, you can feel that is going to give you the right guidance.
That was right on, and I think people need to hear that. And I will say, you've really guided me in a lot of helped me through some like tough times, and helped me make some better choices as well. Can
Very
you share
kind of
something
you to
about?
say that, Prabhu.
I'm just being honest. Can you share something about Brigu? Now, from what I understand, the Jyotish which is what you study, which is a study of celestial bodies, that was given by Vyasadev's father in the Hara Shastras, and that's his that was Parashara. Now, Brigu, from what I understand, is a whole nother lineage of, celestial understanding of people's life. And there's Brigu temples around India that this sounds crazy, but that know when you're coming to visit them. They have some insight of when you're coming to visit them. Do you want to share something about Brigu temples or Brigu readings?
Yeah, of course. So Brigu is fascinating. I met Briguma a few years ago, and so Brigu has temples, ashrams everywhere. Husharpur is one of the main ones. And when you go there, they'll already know that you're meant to come at that time. They'll know your whole history, your whole life, everything about you. These little, you know, sometimes it's on leaves, sometimes it's on ancient paper. They know everything that's going to happen in your life. Um, and the past. My father went for one of those, and he was quite amazing, the things that he saw and heard from them. So it's just these ancient sciences, this ancient
Mm,
knowledge that Krishna has given us is so powerful. It'll allow each and every one of you to see at an even deeper level your own karma and, more importantly, your relationship with Krishna, your relationship with divinity, and understanding that there's much more going on around me
mm.
than I can fully appreciate at this moment.
Okay. It brings me back to this point where we do have free will, but how wrapped up are we in our karma that I can't exercise my free will? You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, of
Sometimes
course.
karma seems so overwhelming.
Mm.
How do I am I even making choices, or is my destiny just handing me stuff?
Karma is certainly overwhelming. It can be, especially in the Kali Yuga, karma can be very overwhelming. Each and every one of us can, whether in our own life or people we know, somebody's got, a health problem at a very young age. They're going through some mental distress, problems with the kids, husband and wife issues, legal problems, financial problems. There's always something going on. The important thing to remember, we can't always control the karma that comes into our life. In fact, we can't control the karma that comes into our life. But what we can control is how we choose to respond to that karma.
Sure.
And this is the most important factor. And if we respond simply with the mind, or simply out of bewilderment or depression or stress, or without a spiritual foundation in our life, this just aggravates or agitates that karma and takes us into a much different position. In fact, may make things a lot worse. But if we can understand that karma from that bigger picture, the word you always use is to zoom out of your life
Mm.
and look at it from a bigger picture and understand that Krishna's presence is there, my karma is there, and I can use this opportunity to become transformed. And by transformed, it means to accept that I'm not the controller, that my desires, my perceptions of how my life should be is not turning out the way I want.
Mm.
And if we can give up that attachment a little bit, if we can say, okay, I will trust Krishna, who is the controller. I will not fully depend on my own, mind and which direction it's taking me. Then we can become very, very powerful, because when we accept our karma, we accept Krishna's presence in our life. We start giving up attachments, and this is a great step in the transformation of our karma into something that's burdening us, into something that releases us and brings us closer to divinity.
How you say that, it really reminds me of this. The Buddhists and the Hindus have this analogy of samsara, which is a wheel. You see it as a wheel in your mind, but in that wheel, it's like a wheel going down a hill, almost like a snowball, and it's snowballing almost out of control. And when the snowball also gets bigger generally too. So sometimes our bad choices lead to more bad choices. It's not like I have a bad choice, I'm going to make a good choice now. Oftentimes our bad choices lead to bad association, lead to not more bad choices, lead to addictive behaviors, lead to a bad relationship. And it snowballs, not just in this lifetime, because I've seen this happen in my own life. In this lifetime, it leads to lifetimes of this stuff. And it's almost like the Satguru, the Acharya, the pure devotee, the preacher, or the minister, or the devotee comes and sort of like sticks a stick in the spoke of that wheel that's rolling and just throws it off and allows us entrance out of that horrible cycle that's out of control at this point. And this is the beauty of stumbling upon a bona fide yoga tradition, is like we can get out of these choices that have been sort of going on autopilot for lifetimes. And so I do think that what you're saying today has been not just helpful, it's been it gives us some frame of reference to step away, not just from our mind, which we're not the mind, but to step away from our karma, which we're not our karma, and see ourselves as these beings that are almost sort of like riding in a runaway car, like a runaway train.
Yes.
And like, what can we do now? So anyway, I'm getting a flood of private messages about, and maybe you can have a Q&A or a workshop or something for our Sage community platform. Because I think there's a lot of questions out there and I couldn't address them all on the show today. Do we have something
Absolutely.
set up already, Mara?
Yeah, we're setting something up for the beginning of April. But also, how do people, if people want to reach out to you directly, Prabhu, how do they do that?
Best way is, there's two ways. You can come through my website, which is radhikeshdas.com. Okay, very simple. You can also contact me on Instagram, which is Radhikesh_das. Two most easy ways if people want to contact me.
_das. Okay, great.
I'll
And-
also, just to make it easy for people, I'll also put my phone number in the chat, and people can text or WhatsApp me also if they need to.
Ooh, nice.
We'll do that.
Okay, and what about Sage community platform workshops or Q&As? Do we have anything like that on the books, Mara?
We should.
Beginning of April. Okay, so
beginning of April, yes.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Prabhu, for your time. I just love talking to you. If no one was even listening to this podcast, I just love sitting there and talking to you. I'm going to see you in Florida. I'm looking forward to dinner at your house. I'm already inviting myself over because your wife's the best cook I've ever ran into, next to Miss Mara, of course. But I get a whole cultural experience. Love to your wonderful kids too. And
thank you.
Thank you
so much.
soon.
So grateful to be here. And yes, we'll connect as soon as you come down to Florida, Prabhu. Looking forward to spending time with both of you.
Thanks to everybody for joining us. Remember, my pilgrimage is happening October 29th to November 11th. Devaprayag, Rishikesh, Haridwar, Jaipur, and Vrindavan /Govardhan. If you're interested, go to raghu.pilgrimage@gmail.com to make sure you get on that boat. Also, we are having our Memorial Day weekend at Super Soul Farm. We're kicking off farm on Memorial Day weekend, Wisdom of the Sages retreat. Come meet the family, so to speak. We have really nice get-togethers, and looking forward to that. Also, I forgot to mention, Radhikesh is coming to Italy. So we're looking forward to that. Maybe we can give you a little Q&A day while we're in Italy. And I'll be looking forward to that, Prabhu.
Look, I am too. I'd love to do a Q&A while we're there. Wouldn't be wonderful.
Okay. Dissect my brain. Figure out what demons are running this machine.
I don't think I'll find any demons running that machine, Prabhu. Only divine beings in there.
Haribol. All right, thanks everybody for joining us. Madan Gopal, welcome to the show. Catherine A's here. A.H. Yogini, Haribol, good to see you. Who else we got here joining late? Hannah Brinkhouse, good to see you. Jamie Step Dojo, Haribol to you. and Chitra Devidasi. Haribo. Thanks, everybody. It is a beautiful day for a beautiful day. Thanks to Radhikesh Prabhu. Let the magic continue to flow, and Amaha Hari